So the first piece I want to look at is titled Women Inmates, Why the Male Model Doesn't Work, which was produced in collaboration between the New York Times and Netflix to advertise their upcoming season of Orange is the New Black. So the piece uses a combination of long-form narrative journalism and audiovisual techniques, and while the narrative journalism is great, I really want to focus on the use of audiovisual techniques to engage the reader. Just like this first one, which is their use of moving artwork. So the artwork moves as it's timed to the position of the scrolling bar on the page. So it moves as you scroll up and down the page. It's an incredibly clever way to engage the reader from the moment that they start reading the piece and give them a sense of control and immerse them in the piece because they have the ability to determine how the piece moves according to the scroll bar, how the artwork moves according to the scroll bar. The other technique that I find really great is the use of auto-playing video content. So the piece will have sentences such as the one I've highlighted, which are open-ended and allow for further explanatory material. But rather than continue just to write, it flows seamlessly into this use of auto-playing video. So you scroll down the page and the video is timed to start playing depending on the position of the scroll bar. So this is a really clever way to integrate interviews with the inmates that are being spoken of throughout the piece, as well as B-roll footage of the environment that these women are living in. It really creates a immersive environment for the reader, particularly if they have little to no conception of the harshness and the coldness that is the reality of these prison systems. It's also wonderful because rather than in a typical investigative or narrative feature article, you can actually see the faces of the people that they are talking about. It's really humanizing for the narrative, and I think that that's really what the piece is trying to get at, that these women are human beings and that we need to be treating them better in this system. I also think that it's great that the video content autoplays, and this is something that continues to happen throughout the piece whenever a video comes up. It's really important because the video content, rather than if you have to click on it, it feels like it's part of the piece. It's not optional. It's just the flow of narrative from two different mediums. So you as a reader are able to enjoy it without having to see it as an ancillary part of the piece. I also really love the visual aesthetic of the piece. So I love the use of pull quotes and statistics that extend beyond the barriers of the text and use visually harmonious color schemes and styles. I don't think that we're going to be able to have these kinds of images and text that break the barrier of the text box mold, but I do hope that we can incorporate similar infographic statistics and pull quotes that are an artwork within the framework that we're provided with by our WordPress account, but that is still visually harmonious and gives the reader a sense of like almost collegiality between all the different elements. Another feature I really love is this use of photo galleries. It's something I haven't seen done in investigative long-form features before. I really love it because it gives the reader, again, that you can put a face to the names that are being talked about in this piece. And that really allows you to, again, see these individuals that are being spoken of as human beings, which I think definitely lends itself to the purpose of the piece. I also love because it's just like a little bit of extra content that you can click on and interact with, just like this infographic on the right. So again, we can see there is like a consistent style and color scheme, and that really lends itself to the visual appeal and makes the eyes dart towards the image. So I think that's a really clever technique. One of the final techniques I really love of this piece is the use of audio grabs. So they have, again, these sentences that lend themselves to talking about what the inmates have said. And rather than just type out the quotes, they also add a audio grab, which allows you to hear the voice of the person who's talking, hear them elaborate on the point, and this continues throughout the piece. These aren't timed to autoplay, which I actually think is a good thing because you might find it distracting and overwhelming depending on where you're up to in the piece. So it really allows you as the reader to take your own pace and time reading the piece and choose whether or not you want to interact with this material, which is a good thing because you also don't want the piece to be the audio-visual stimulation to be overwhelming for readers. The second piece that I would like to talk about is called Snowfall, which explores the survival of several skiers during the avalanche at Tunnel Creek. It's also produced by the New York Times, and you can definitely see that they have some favoured audiovisual techniques and a certain style that they apply to their pieces. But there are some differences here that I would like to talk about. So one of the first elements of this piece, as I'm highlighting above, is the use of episodes to break up the narrative, because it's quite long and serious, and divided into the chunks depending on the various stages of the avalanche and the stages of these people's fight for survival. I think it's a really clever way to not overwhelm the reader with information and allow them to navigate throughout the story as they choose. Now, unlike the other piece, they don't have auto-playing content, but they do have it integrated quite well, so you can see that it appears alongside the text. But if you click that highlighted grey little bit of text where the name is, it immediately plays the video. I think that it's actually a really great technique and probably something that we can integrate into our WordPress system a bit better. It's also a wonderful way to, again, give a more human perspective to the piece by showing the interview subjects, as well as really immerse readers in the landscape that we're talking about. You can also switch to full screen, adjust the volume, pause the video. So that kind of user control, I think, is also a great thing depending on whether you want to take the time to watch the video without reading, or you want to use it as like a ancillary visual aid. I also really love how you can click on the names of the various interview subjects spoken of, and it takes you to a pop-up photograph gallery. It's a really cool way for you to see these individuals as like real people, and you start to care about their well-being and their survival, so it makes you want to read until the end of the piece to make sure that they are okay. The fact that it also includes pictures of when they were kids, I think, really makes you think that you know them. They're not just like a distant person in the piece, they are like a friend from down the road, and that, I think, also helps propel you through all 6 of the episodes. So again, you can also click on the names of the person, or like they have a little tag on the right-hand side, kind of like a LinkedIn pop-up or an iMessage pop-up, which I think is a really cool way because it prompts the reader to automatically click on it. Again, the use of photo galleries, I think, is a wonderful way to illustrate the incredible conditions of this environment, and the fact that it has like view slideshow, I think that creates an anticipation for the reader so that they want to click on it. I also really love the combination of video and image here to demonstrate the severity of the weather for readers who may have no conception of it whatsoever. It's like an operating GIF, and so it's timed to like just continually play. Similar effects appear on the second episode. Again, we can see the use of video content and auto-playing GIFs to illustrate some of the more scientific points, such as weather and snow density. I really love these breakaways to create little photograph galleries that you can just see, and these little animations on the right that just like pop up. They're so cute, and they really just are visually thrilling for the reader. They kind of, if you're getting bored, they bring you straight back into it. The photography is incredible, and again, there's a real style to the piece in the video content, in the images, and in the color scheme. The final piece I want to talk about is a visual, interactive online documentary called Do Not Track. This piece explores the way that we continually hand over data to various online platforms throughout our daily routine, and is an incredibly clever way to show us that even when we're watching a documentary online, the media is constantly tracking us and following our every move and collecting information about us. So the reason I'm calling it an interactive documentary is because it presents like a film, but it uses coding to identify very unique facts to me as an individual. So it's working through my ISP as I'm watching it. It also has interactive elements, so it will ask me questions and tell me certain facts about myself. I really love how it uses a combination of shot footage and famous, like iconic media imagery, because the piece is essentially a media piece exploring the world of media. So it's kind of like Inception in that sense. So I think it's really clever to utilize media footage within a media piece to be talking about the media. It just kind of reflects that kind of interactivity between all the layers. The one thing that I did find frustrating about the piece is that because the video content is is such a large file, it tends to crash quite a lot. So definitely when we're using video in our platform, I don't think we should use it as consistently, because our WordPress is not a premium account and will probably not be able to download the file size on various computers as effectively. So I really love how the documentary is able to use information from my computer logging onto the website to tell me where I live, that I'm on an Apple computer, that I like the weather of the area that I'm living in. It's really creepy and confronting, and a very clever way to dramatically show me the implications of my ignorant data use. Another feature that I really love about the piece that continues throughout all the various episodes of the documentary is it will ask me questions and then show me personalized answers based on the information I provide. So, for example, I say that I get my news from Facebook.com and click OK. It then will show me the various data interactions between sites. So Facebook only sells its data to Facebook.com officially, so there's only a link between those two. But say if you put in a website that had a lot of data sharing and selling, lots of different links would come up. Again, the piece is just visually stimulating, and I would love to include this kind of hyper-edited professional material into our piece.